This Super Nintendo controller with a screen in it is the RG353p. It's Anbernic's latest entry in the retro handheld world. The device sports a nostalgic look with some modern features such as Android support. Should you consider this dual-booting Super Nintendo controller-inspired retro gaming device? Well, we'll find out by going through an unboxing, a deep dive into the hardware and software, take a look at emulator performance, and wrap it up with some overall thoughts. So get subscribed and let's get right to it. The RG353p is available in two colors, gray and translucent black. You can get this device straight from Anbernic's website. It goes for $140 or $148 if you want to add the micro SD card loaded with games. The unboxing is not anything too special, but it's good to see the device is well packed and wrapped. Included in the box is the device, a USB-C cable, a screen protector, and if you opted to include in your order, a micro SD card for the second slot that includes the preloaded games. Both devices truly look great. I enjoy the Super Nintendo vibe, but I also really like the translucent black because the button text etched in really pops. The RG353p sports an RK3566 chipset with 2GB of RAM. This is actually the same chipset in Anbernic's previous model, the RG503, but it actually has double the amount of RAM, which will hopefully result in better game performance. The screen on this device is a bit unique for 2022. More recently, retro device screens are getting larger, but Anbernic actually chose a 3.5-inch touchscreen with a 4:3 aspect ratio at a resolution of 640 by 480. This should translate into some great retro gaming. Taking a look at the face buttons, the D-pad feels great as always on Anbernic devices. The analog sticks are the standard Switch style and feel fine. They're a bit recessed, so they only stick out of the device slightly. The ABXY buttons feel good, all bounce right back up on press and don't get stuck or anything like that. Also on the front of the device is the start and select buttons, a function key, and the power button. I'm really not a fan of the power button at this location. There are so many times when I was playing games on this device that I accidentally hit that power button. It really belongs at the top of the device where we have two USB-C ports, the volume rocker, HDMI Out, and a reset button. I would have much preferred the reset button to be at the bottom of the device with the micro SD card slots and headphone jack. Lastly, we have stacked triggers. This is Anbernic's first device to feature stacked triggers, and while they feel a little mushy, I actually don't mind them. I hope to see this stick for future iterations of their retro handhelds. On the back of the device, it just has these rubber pads. While not really necessary, I do like that they help the device stay in place when you put it down. On the included 16GB micro SD card is a modified Batocera firmware. Most of the emulators have the right settings, but the emulators themselves are not necessarily well optimized. This is where custom firmware comes in. Luckily, we have Gel OS, which is a custom firmware by the developer responsible for Emulec. Gel OS is a great firmware option and has tons of emulator options. It's great that most of the RetroArch flexibility actually lives within the front end, and I really like the save state approach. Not only does Gel OS automatically create save states, but you can also choose to auto boot into those save states whenever you select a game. And that brings us to Android. You can simply boot into Android by just removing the micro SD card from the first slot, and it will automatically boot into Android. And I'm conflicted with Android on this device. It comes preloaded with emulators, and some of them should be paid like Drastic, which I do find a bit sketchy. And given that there's no Google Play Store, you're a bit on your own to find anything else you may want to add to this device. I ended up installing the Aurora App Store, which is kind of like a proxy for devices like this that don't have Google services. I do like that you can authenticate with Aurora and you can download your paid apps, but it is a bit sketchy since it's a third party. I don't really know where this data is going, but I tried it out for you guys. But even once you have the Aurora App Store installed, results are a bit hit or miss. For example, I was able to install and use Game Pass even though it gave me a bunch of errors at first, although it was still pretty much unplayable. On the other hand, I couldn't get any of the Grand Theft Auto games up and running. They all gave me errors. Besides that, there are some inherent pluses to the pre-installed emulators. The N64 emulator has a predefined profile for the RG353p, and it's actually much better than the ones that come default in Mupen 64. While I'm glad the screen is touch capable, it is a bit small, so I often find myself mistapping. It's a really minor thing, and the benefits of the touchscreen far outweigh some of the mistaps when I'm navigating or typing. I found that because this is preloaded with Android 11, you start to lose the benefits of the openness of Android. For example, I wasn't really able to set up the dig front end because you can't choose the root of an SD card for security reasons. And we need the SD card root because on the Linux side, that's where the games are expected to be in the file system. So again, I'm a bit torn. The emulators are pre-installed and even have some configuration changes for optimal performance, but anything else, and you have to figure it out yourself. It's also interesting that this device came preloaded on Android with a PS2 and GameCube emulator. I'll show my attempts with GameCube emulation in a bit, but I'll tell you right up front, I didn't try PS2 and it's definitely not going to work. Alright, let's get into some gameplay performance. All of the basic systems are great on Gel OS. And I had so much fun when I was playing Super Nintendo. I just couldn't get over the fact that I was playing Super Nintendo on a device shaped like the actual Super Nintendo controller. And even better, it passes the Yoshi's Island test with flying colors. When you get to the harder to run systems, you actually start to hit the limits of this device. N64 on Gel OS was not awful, but games were kind of hit or miss. On the other hand, N64 on Android was absolutely fantastic. The predefined profile that I mentioned before makes the games look and run great. It's not to say that every game will run great. For example, Mario Tennis has some pretty weird glitches, but I was actually able to run Ocarina of Time with custom textures. PlayStation 1 is also a fantastic experience. You can upscale on both the Linux and Android side with no problems at all. And again, because it's on a 4:3 aspect ratio screen, the games feel exactly like they should. The biggest disappointment was actually Dreamcast. I figured that would run no problem, but on both Linux and Android, they had fairly poor performance. And for some good measure, here's PSP. It doesn't really work well, it's got a frame skip of 1, which I define as just not playable. It makes the game just look very jittery. So, because Android has Dolphin pre-installed, I decided I'd give it a shot. And as you may have guessed, the performance is just terrible. I didn't stop there though. I thought I'd be thorough. I tried not only Dolphin, but I installed MMJR and MMJR2. I even tried to downscale the GameCube games the same way the Retroid Pocket 2 does, but that didn't help at all and made the games look like I took my glasses off or something. I actually think that Android overall has the best performance, but the convenience of the lightweight GelOS firmware, auto save states, and emulation station wins me over. One of the biggest benefits is the compact size of this device. It's great that it has a screen protector included, but I'm just not a huge fan of using screen protectors. I've been really into these cases recently. It's been the perfect size for lots of recent handhelds and happens to fit the RG353 perfectly. It's even got a small pocket inside to fit a USB-C charging cable. The device fits well, and while there is extra space inside, I feel that there is enough cushion for at least some level of protection. Lastly, I wanted to give HDMI Out a try. I don't really see myself using this feature, but when you're in a crunch for a quick game of Tetris with some friends, maybe this will be helpful. Unfortunately, HDMI Out on the Android side is just simply a no-go. It works, but it stretches everything out within the operating system, including the actual games, and is just no fun. On the Linux side, HDMI Out works really well. You just have to boot your device with the HDMI cable already plugged in. The aspect ratio is correct, so if you're going to use the video out functionality, I recommend doing it from the Linux side. While the performance is underwhelming when it comes to pushing the bar to play more demanding emulation, I don't think that's the intention of this device anyway, and that's perfectly fine by me. This device is perfect when you just want to sit down and get some real retro gaming in. It performs best with the older consoles like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, N64, PlayStation 1. The RG353p has quickly become one of my favorite retro handheld devices at the moment. I do wish the Android experience was a bit better and had access to the Google Play Store, but most of the emulator apps that you want to use are preloaded, and there are certainly ways to sideload apps. Overall, I think anyone looking for a unique, well-made, and easy-to-travel with retro handheld for some of the more classic systems like Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, or N64 would be making a great choice picking up the RG353p. What do you think? Is the look of this device worth the price for something that's a bit underpowered? Or are you waiting for something that can handle all systems including GameCube and PS2 for a cheap price? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Maybe check out some of the other device reviews I've got on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed to keep up with the latest videos, and thanks for watching.